Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the main library. We're so glad you could join us for Legacy as Living Practice, Artists in Conversation. Tonight's program is presented in partnership with the San Francisco Arts Commission Shaping Legacy Initiative. Together with the artists and with you, we're reflecting on how legacy and memory take shape in our city. Thank you to our partners at the SFAC, to the artists who are sharing their work, and to all of you for being here. It is now my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Angela Carrier, Senior Program Manager for Monuments and Memorials at the San Francisco Arts Commission. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Anissa, and thank you to the SFPL team, to Kenny and Mike for all your help tonight, collaborating with us on tonight's program here and welcoming us into the Corrette Auditorium this evening. We are on unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone. We affirm the sovereign rights of their community as First Peoples and are committed to supporting the traditional and contemporary evolution of the American Indian community and uplifting contemporary Indigenous voices and culture. I say these words with full acknowledgement that we need to go beyond the statements and begin to put the words into action and continue efforts for repair and right relation. Later this fall, actually here in the library, there will be some beautiful visual imagery in the atrium above the staircase leading to the second floor Children's Center by artist Maria Belén Islas Cuellar, developed in collaboration with the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone. So we hope you will have a chance to come back and experience that temporary vinyl mural that conveys the importance of intergenerational knowledge, wisdom sharing from an Indigenous perspective. So welcome to tonight's artist panel and conversation, Legacy as Living Practice. My name is Angela Carrier, and I'm currently the Senior Program Manager at the Arts Commission. And I have this unique opportunity to steward our Shaping Legacy project, which is fully supported with funding from the Mellon Foundation. Shaping Legacy is a 3-year grant-funded project to critically examine the monuments and memorials in the Civic Art Collection and to reimagine the future of a commemorative landscape in the city. We believe that artists and their community can guide us to a place where monuments and memorials are spaces of belonging, inclusion, and a recognition of our shared humanity. So we're about halfway through the project, and if you saw some of the rotating slides as you came in today, we have been working with an artist circle and community collaborators over the last year. There are 13 other artists in addition to the 3 here this evening that we've been working with, and some incredible staff and partners at the different organizations that I'd love to call out right now. We've been working with Alex and Katie at the Tenderloin Museum, Wade, Rio, and Barry at Gray Area, Leanne and Guy at 500 Cap Street, and Danny Boy at the Samoan Community Development Center. We also have a slide, and as you walk in on the table, about our audit report, which is a real integral part of the first phase of our project to critically examine the collection. The audit report is publicly accessible on our website, and you can dive into the data, the analysis, the research, and all the recommendations in it. The audit was completed by HR&A advisors and Forget Me Not History with New Monuments Task Force, and the report really provides a greater understanding for our collection and how we can evolve the archive and expand public memory. And so now we're here today in this special gathering and conversation, fittingly in a monumental space of access, of history, of stories and wisdom that is the San Francisco Public Library, to talk about legacy and collective memory. So I want to get into it now. You can find the bios and background on our artists on the program event webpage, but I'm going to ask each of you here with us to introduce yourself in your own way. And borrowing from a prompt that I heard on Alicia Garza's Lady Don't Take No podcast, I invite you and those in the audience, if you'd like to consider for yourselves, to tell us about a relative or a kin that's now an ancestor and how you are a living embodiment of them. So with your introduction and then how you want to answer that prompt. And Ambrose, do you want to start us off?
Hi, my name is Ambrose Trataris. I also go by Cyberspace. I use he, they pronouns. I am from a small desert town in Southern California and have been in the Bay Area since 2012, so about 13 years now. I'm an artist who practices lots of mediums, and in general, I feel like art is a problem-solving tool, so I like to try and dabble in everything. And in terms of ancestors, I have a very sort of sparse connection to a lot of my family ties, and so I feel very connected to a lot of like Greek gods. Specifically, I would say Hermes, who is the messenger god, and is I think it's always interesting, this idea of like the messenger being either a good or bad thing, but sometimes people don't like to receive messages, and so I relate a lot to Hermes because I have delivered many messages, both with good and bad consequences.
Love that. Thank you. Sophia.
Hey, y'all. My name is Sophia Tupuola. Y'all can call me Fia. What's your name? Not yet. Okay, not yet. First of all, thank y'all for making space for me to have my child on stage with me. I'm first generation Samoan American. I was born and raised in Bayview Hunters Point, which is in the southeast sector of San Francisco. I was born and raised in public housing. My method of art is creative problem solving. I didn't set out to be an artist. I just showed up and problem solved. When it comes to the ancestor that I embody, much like you, I don't feel the immediate ancestors that I know who have transitioned. I don't feel them close, but I'd recently gotten a Hilot, Filipino healing massage, and they said that the ancestors that are lighting my way are pre-colonial. And so I am trying to get to know them better. And since publishing our book, I feel their joy in my body. And so I know that they're around me, and just grateful for the stories we're telling.
Thank you.
Halito, Tricia Rainwater, she, her pronouns. I am Choctaw and German. My grandparents on my father's side were Mississippi Choctaw and Oklahoma Choctaw, so they fought about that all the time. I, on my mother's side, am German and was raised on a cattle ranch in the Central Valley. And when I was 10, we moved to New Mexico to Shiprock, to the Navajo reservation. And so both of those places really formed me and were formative in my upbringing. I think when I think about who I'm an embodiment of, it's a hard one, but my grandmother actually, my grandma Gloria Larson, she was a really tough lady. And for the past few years, I started getting very into tarot card readings, but I had someone tell me that she was she was asking me questions, and she really has informed my art over the past few years and pushed me, and realizing that she's with me, and I'm really connected. I'm kind of sassy like her and tell long stories, so.
Thank you all for opening the space and for sharing those stories. And that's what we're here for tonight, to talk story, to share our stories. We're going to now hear from each artist in more depth about their creative process, projects, and inspirations. And then we'll be in conversation together for a bit. And then we're going to, possibly, if time permits, we can get into some questions, or you're always welcome to reach out and follow up after the event. So this is Legacy Reimagined. We're going to have each artist tell us, what does it mean to reimagine monuments and memorials in our city, and what does legacy as living practice mean to you? And so we're going to start with Tricia, then Sophia, and then Ambrose.
Hi again. I'm going to start by reading part of a Joy Harjo poem from Map to the Next World. We no longer know the names of the birds here, how to speak to them by their personal names. Once we knew everything in this lush promise. So a few years back, I I had started dreaming that I was on my homelands and that I was photographing myself there. I had been photographing myself for over a decade, and it felt natural, like a natural progression to return. I'm very disconnected from my family due to a lot of trauma. I say sometimes that we lost each other on purpose, and we kind of did. I think we all split to kind of take care of ourselves and each other. So returning back to Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, to these places where removal happened, was a really, really tough journey. And I think I went in a little naive, thinking it would just be beautiful and I would learn so much with just all the beauty. I have been reading Spiral to the Stars, Muskoke Tools on Futurity by Laura Harjo for the past 3 years. I just keep reading it and rereading it. And she has this part of the book where she talks about different types of indigenous knowledge, specifically Muskoke tools. Felt knowledge, smelt knowledge, dream knowledge, observational knowledge, stargazing knowledge, cultural worker knowledge, practicing life ways of knowledge. And as my trip started, I really thought about all these ways of knowing a place. I went into the trip feeling like I was kind of at a loss because I didn't have all of the stories. I didn't know where to go. I emailed Choctaw Nation, Oklahoma, and said, "Do you have a map? I can't find a map." And they said, "Oh, we don't publish those things, obviously. Tell us who you are." And so I explained who I am. And they gave me a map of 2 routes of the Trail of Tears. One led to Oklahoma, what is part of Choctaw Nation now, and one led to Ardmore, Oklahoma, to the Love Building. And as I traveled the journey, I looked for monuments. I looked for placards. I looked for things that would, quote unquote, guide me. I found this one that was a little marker, stated Trail of Tears. It was directly across from a building built for Civil War soldiers by the Daughters of the American Revolution, decked out with flags, kept up beautifully. And this was kind of hidden in an area to the side. A lot of people died in this park traveling the trail, and so that juxtaposition of this huge monument next to this very small placard felt loud. So as I traveled, it felt important to go to the place where the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek was signed, saying we would travel the trail, and hearing my grandma talk about the people who walked and the people who didn't. She had really strong opinions about that. And when I was in Mississippi, and I met Mississippi Choctaws there, they would ask if I stayed or left, if my family stayed or left. And I was surprised that this image felt important for me to take. And then my ideas of image making on my homelands really changed. I really wanted to pose myself in the way I had seen ancestors posed. This is a cemetery now where a lot of Choctaw folks are buried. Yeah, it's down a really long dirt road. I'm gonna skip that one and come back, but I revisited some of the places I went on my first trip 3 years ago last month. And so much has changed. This is part of Bayou LaCroix. My first time there, I asked if I could photograph in this field near the water of the Mississippi River. And a white woman had came out of her house and had been watching me for quite some time. And she said, "I don't care, it's not my land." And I was like, oh, this deep gulp. This time as I was here, I I had another woman from the homeowners association follow me around and asked me 3 times if I needed help. On the 4th time, she came back with the sheriff and had offered me water, and I was like, do I tell her I'm Choctaw? Like, what do I do? I was like, oh, taking photos, the land is changing so quickly, but they kept asking why I was poking around, and so I had to leave. I think in these places where some of us go back to look for home, to find home, to be on the land, we aren't always met with welcome. This, again, is the road to Dancing Rabbit Creek. The road is about 6 miles long, and it's a heavy place to be. This time when I went there, a big hole had been dug for piping, and so I wasn't able to access where the monument is, and so I photographed myself within the trees and on the land. But it was, I think in these moments as artists, it can be hard to punt and change when you have a certain idea of what your vision's gonna be. But this photograph is called "My Ancestors Hold Me." When I went a few years ago, I was told by a park ranger that if I hiked up a mountain, or this huge hill, I'm gonna call it a mountain, in Arkansas, that I would be able to actually reach the trail bed of the Trail of Tears. And I would know it when I saw it. She said, it gets really dark and the road is bowed. And then she followed up with, kids love to bike down it. And again, my stomach kind of dropped. And I got up to it and I was like, how the heck am I gonna make images here? Is that even the right thing to do? And so I started having this overwhelming urge to touch the trees, to hold the trees. And I took very few images of that, but I was really overcome with a lot of emotions. And a few days later, I was at Oklahoma Choctaw Tribal Museum, and I was watching a video of someone talking about walking the trail and removal, and how the women held the trees as they left, as they were walking. And it was a moment where I felt like I was actually listening, like something was clicking. And even though I couldn't call my dad or my grandma, I was being led. This time I tried to get to our holy mound for ceremony, and I got there too late. I got there right, I think it must have been an hour or so after it had ended, and so I took pictures of the ceremony, this fire and the stick that I imagine an uncle was holding next to the tree. Really, my work is creating an archive of places that are really important to me, even places that I haven't known personally or had like connections with my family. I know that my ancestors are part of these places. How am I doing on time? 4 more minutes, yeah. I wanted to talk about this project called Falima Ishla Chiki. My Choctaw is terrible, but this piece honors missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit folks. It is 4 mobiles in front of a wall of missing posters that I'd been collecting for 4 years on Facebook and Instagram. One of the women on this wall went missing in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Again, Ardmore is one of the in spots of the Trail of Tears. I found that really, really interesting and really heartbreaking. Each ribbon on these mobiles represents a person, with jingles at the top that are baby jingles and then adult jingles at the bottom. And when I made these mobiles, I really had the idea that people would move through them. And a lot of people bristled at that, but I felt like maybe if people could get up close and personal and stand within them, they would feel the loss. And maybe it would change something. And I really do believe that art is meant to do that, to shake a person up, to wake them up, and hopefully change things. there was this note in front of it that said, "Please be mindful and interact with the mobiles with care." And I think that that's a really important thing to think about as we think about monuments and memorials. I think they're for the people of the land to really think about first and take the lead from there, and just interact with care.
Thank you, Tricia. You ready, Sophia?
Yeah. Ocean, are you ready to open us up? Okay. Okay. So before we get started, to call everyone together, my daughter's going to lead in an activity or an icebreaker. And so before she gets started, I just want to give you guys some tips. So mealy is rubbing your hands together. So can you guys practice with me? Mealy, rub your hands. Okay. When she says patia, you clap once. So patia. And when she says luomai, you clap twice. Okay. You ready? Okay. Are you ready to lead it, Shun? Okay, ready? Go. Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, you're on the clicker. Here. Get up, monkey. You want to say hi? You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah,
Okay.
I learned first.
Okay. This is Oshun. They're my one and only daughter or child. And yeah, thank you again for just holding space for both of us to be here. Yeah, I'm a facilitator in Bayview Hunters Point, and we really love calling people in with call and response.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm from the southeast sector of San Francisco. It's spatially sequestered, so not a lot of resources, transportation, not a lot of things run through there. We're a food desert, a job desert, and there was no art there. So there were no monuments and memorials in District 10 of Bayview Hunters Point. This is me on Easter Sunday and my family. We're sitting on the same bench that me and Oshun are sitting on. And as you can see, the artwork is a lot of rest in peace. And so that's the art we had access to when I was coming up. And when I say I'm first generation, I mean my mom immigrated here. Oshun is a second generation, so yeah. This is me just wanting to speak more about the Southeast. Here's me again as a teenager next to my cousin's rest in peace memorial in front of our house. But these posters are a project from the Resilient Youth Leadership Academy, which I run during the summers for impacted youth in District 10. And this summer, their campaign of awareness was just to highlight the burden that Bayview Hunters Point bears for the entire city. And so that's an environmental burden, a climate burden, all the layers. And so these two maps that we chose for today we're in an area of concentrated poverty, and we're also the most in an area of like non-white. Maybe I'll go back here and just talk more. Learning about, it's crazy. So when I say we're spatially sequestered in Bayview Hunters Point, like we typically don't rock with anybody outside of, our own community. And so I'm really grateful for folks like Angela to call like real community into these spaces and to help us to feel brave to like share our experiences. And so learning more about this what monuments and memorials is up to, I'm like, oh, we don't even have. There's an actual map, I should have included it here, of like where monuments and memorials are in the city, and it's realizing, just like this map, we don't have anything here. And we're the most burdened by pretty much, just all the things. So let me get. So what does it mean to reimagine monuments and memorials in our city? I think about people like me. I think about my youth from District 10 and Bayview Hunters Point, who are typically left out of the conversation overall. And I think about, how do we value those folks? How do we show them that they are valuable just as they are, as the creative problem solvers that they are, as folks who can make something out of nothing, and always make ends meet. And yeah. Where my journey started, in community, it started way before this, but I hold a Resilient Youth Leadership Academy every summer since 2015. We had some blip years during COVID, but this program looks to empower those impacted high school youth from District 10. And that means getting them civically engaged, so meeting city and state stakeholders, and participating in various campaigns of awareness, things of that nature. I hope I'm on point. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, yeah. So these are some of the campaigns we worked on, and some of the things I've done, like graphically, as part of my what did I call it? Creative problem solving. And so one summer, they did a campaign of awareness to like help communities of concern recognize their eco footprints. And so we had these bus stop posters around, targeted for vulnerable populations across the city. And it was another way, it was like one of the first ways where we knew that putting our faces, our bodies on materials would help us to direct our own narratives, would help us to shape the identities that, the stereotypes contribute to our identities and the narrative around our identities that that created value in society, because we are still dying prematurely. This is another one of the projects we worked on, and this was in 2024. We created an augmented reality walking tour down the Evans and Ennis corridor. And so that included sites like the SFPUC, the PG&E plant, and other ones like the Us for Us Center, and a Black-owned cannabis dispensary. And with this, we were able to uplift Black stories, Black joy, Black legacy, and just the history of the community that has been erased or just forgotten. This year, as I showed y'all, we did a series of maps in collaboration with Resilient Bayview, and we also were able to uplift just the years of doing the work with the Resilient Youth Leadership Academy from 2015 to present. And yeah, these are just some of the highlights from every year. Some of the leaders that came out of this program that, shifted the way that we looked at kids who came from our district, our Black and brown babies. And so where I'm from, we're predominantly Black and Samoan. My daughter is Black and Samoan. A lot of these kids here are in some part Samoan. They're half in some kind of way, which is just a testament to this city and the Bay Area, like the way that people come together in this space and the new culture and history we're making together. And so more about like, what does it mean to be, legacy as a living practice? I think that as first generation, something we've had to grow accustomed to is the silo that this American system puts you in. And it's really unnatural to be Pacifica or Samoan and not be communal. And so in being communal, it's like I'm gonna show up and love on you and love on what you're doing because your liberation is my liberation. And so this is a testament. These are my homeboys from the mission. They're all in SF. Sorry, I forgot there's a different all in, but they're all in SF. They do Miracle in the Mission. They also do a backpack giveaway every year since 2015. And it's just like, how do I be in community with my people? Oh, they need this? Yep, I'm gonna do it. That's how I show up. That's how I'm helping you problem solve is, you need this? Okay, let's figure it out. Let's make it happen. And so what I contributed with them was just a lot of the artwork in their beginning years. And so I say all that to say is just like I also do birth justice work. And so the way that institutions, the way that, these Western spaces are created, they separate us from the caregiver, from, like at the hospital. They separate us from each other, and really, it's all relational, How can I be that vulnerable and show up with all the love I got to give to you? And so another one of those organizations is like Us for Us. They're real big in the point, and they're also a part of our augmented reality walking tour because they have a center now. And they started, I know some of y'all from the SOMA, but Uncle Damien, he started under Rudy Corpus with United Players. And I did too. I went to Balboa. So Rudy has been in my life for a really long time. But yeah, so just like Angela, I think what it takes to really be legacy as living practice is the relational part, and it's also like those people in position like calling you in. And so like I said, I didn't set out to be an artist or to do all the things that I'm doing, but it was people that I trusted that said, hey, you need to do this. And I'm like, okay, I got to do it. I got to do it for you because I love you. And so that started with like creating these logos. And what was behind the logos was how we co-created, like how we sat together and started storytelling, how we talked about the rose growing through the concrete. And then like for us, it was like, oh, it's the taro growing through from the concrete. And so this is my mama Nani, who just recently passed last Monday, and that's why I'm a bit scattered right now. But she was, sorry I didn't speak about her when I talked about ancestors, because she's a new one. Thank you. But yeah, it's because of folks like my mama Nani, like Danny Boy, like Angela, calling you in to be brave and telling you, do the thing. We needed to exist. And that went as far as, here's some other public art. I'm trying to finish really fast. It went as far as, we should write the book. Like Danny Boy, like, let's do the book. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we can do it. And so that's just all really problem solving. It's all relational. We got it all in us, And so before I close out, I would like to read some passages from the book. And so our book is at the front, and we really made this in the same breath of like why we put out the bus stop posters. My daughter is half Black and Samoan. Like I want them to see themselves in this world, and I don't want them to ever feel like they were not supported, that their identity was not supported. And I wanted them to live a long life, just like I want all my youth to live a long life. And so we made it with that in mind.
Black and brown.
You black and brown. Okay, so the book is called Oshun is a Liberated Kid. That's right. And yeah, we had our, sorry, before we get into the passages, we had our first reading in May for Pacific Islander Heritage Month. The District 10 Supervisor, Shaman Walton, came out because he really about the community. After we released it with the community, I'm like, man, I feel I'm fulfilled. Like the people that need this story got it. Yeah.
Okay, so my dad's right there. You see him with that. Yeah. So his name is Dante.
Yeah, my co-parent's name is Dante. Oh yeah, you're her daddy. Man, I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, after we released it in May, and I'm just like, oh, okay, we had the reading. My whole community got it. The Black and Samoan community, Bayview Hunters Point got it. I'm cool. Like I feel fulfilled. The people that need it got the message. They know that they can do it. They got the inside the book. There's a model of how to get it published, how to get yourself published. And that was it. And then, people keep pushing me. So I got to keep selling them. So they for sale in the back. But yeah, losing my train of thought. But I'm going to just explain these pictures. My mom is also the first Samoan dual language pre-K teacher in the nation, actually. And she does it in our hood in Bayview Hunters Point at Loyola Harvard, under SFUSD. She had us come out and read it. But yeah, I'm going to read 2 pages. Freedom is in the pause where my mangava becomes sacred. It's in my voice, the I am, where the root of freedom takes foundation. So I want y'all to repeat after me, okay? I am loved. I am worthy. I am powerful. I am kind. I am able. It's in the practice, the tools, everything I use for self-regulation. So now I'm going to teach you a dragon breath, okay? So you inhale, exhale, roar. But yeah, after creating, my brother, Danny Boy at SCDC having an idea and calling me in and saying, we want you to illustrate this book, we did it. The funding actually got cut from when he said he wanted to do it, and then I got a Culture Keeper Award, and it paid for all my time. It paid for all the publishing and the printing, and that's where these stills come from. So what's in progress right now is they're making this mini documentary just about our story as creative problem solvers. I was talking so much, but if y'all want to know more about me, it's right here.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you. Your turn, Ambrose.
Thank you. So many overlaps, I feel, listening to both of you speak. Okay, so my name is Ambrose Trataris. Like I said, I'm currently more in the skin of cyberspace. I have a background in visual arts and have tried a lot of different mediums. My mother comes from the Midwest and my father comes from Greece, and I grew up working with him on computers, and so for much of my life I went very manual, and then when I discovered virtual reality, went back straight into digital, and found myself here at this very bizarre overlapping space where I am really playing around with dance, drag, virtual reality, augmented reality, and all the ways in which embodiment can function in different forms and mediums. I have an experience on a day-to-day basis that is very, like, how do I describe this? It's like my spirituality kind of extends into this realm where I feel like when I'm talking to someone or when I'm looking at something, I can really see past the thing that I'm looking at directly in front of me. And when I put a VR headset on for the first time, it was this incredible, very like direct way of experiencing the sort of dual experience of dimension, or the dual experience of an ancestor or the other thing that is existing in the space with you at any point in time. And it was this really magical moment, especially as I was in this huge transition phase of my life where I became sober, I started to medically transition, I started doing drag, and I started playing around with virtuality all at the same time. And so everything that I knew to be real was kind of up for grabs and fully up for redefinition. Similarly, I, didn't really know where I belonged, and I didn't know where I felt comfortable or could feel comfortable, especially as I was really shifting in so many different ways. And so being able to be in social spaces in VR and at home at the same time with this like very easy eject button, which is just like to take off a headset, was an incredible space for me to explore. As these kinds of things are all overlapping, I'm thinking about a lot about like, what do I want my body to be, or what is dysphoria, or like, it's this interesting thing. Like when you're in pain, you don't know how much pain you're in until you're out of pain. And I feel like that kind of feeling was true for dysphoria. Like, you don't actually know what's happening until you're on a side of being healed. And then that healing, of course, just opens new wounds for exploration. And so it's an ongoing process. And I could really start to see these different forms of bodies. And like, I'm in this virtual reality body and looking at myself in a mirror, and I'm looking at my drag mom, Mama Celeste, and Beatrix standing across from each other on this pole, also feeling like this mirror. And then I'm looking at this full body tracking system in which I'm developing this dance piece, and I'm like, this system of straps and cables and cords really feels a lot like the nerves and vessels, and kind of the same thing you would look at if you like look at the body with its muscles and everything exposed. So then I produced this piece called Custom Object Lip Sync Dance. It's the most ambitious thing I had ever done really up to that point, where I was like working with multiple performers and a dramaturg and a choreographer, and I was doing live full body tracking in person on stage in like a 25-minute dance piece. And what I really wanted was, I was experiencing all this joy from being in VR, and when I was talking to people, everyone was feeling terror. And so I feel like that was a really interesting place for me to exist, because I, much less in my art practice, am interested in very sort of like maybe deep or dark content, but I'm here to like have a good time, and I'm here to bring entertainment value and softness and like laughter to that darkness. And so how can I show this embodiment practice to people that maybe don't want to be in VR or like interact with the tech directly and play around with it? And so you can see the behind Salimatu, you can see on the projection the avatar that they're in, and they're in the full body tracking system. And I'm in this process of mimicking them, and then the avatar is mimicking them, and we're going through this way of learning from each other and teaching each other movements and playing around with how movements can happen in our bodies. Similarly, as you can kind of see me now, I was playing around with like my own form, and then this sort of like humanoid furry character that was built by an artist based off of my drag and my VR character mixed together, and then I made those characters into VR characters. And I'm just like really playing around with like, again, what is real and what layer of reality exists where. And that kind of brought me to this project Set in Stone. I visited Greece last fall, and I went to Olympia, which is where the Olympics took place, and I saw everybody there sitting on the monuments and the pieces of rubble having lunch. And I've been to Greece many times in my life, and I love the relationship that Greek people have to monuments, which is just like they exist to be interacted with. They're not separate from your everyday life. It's the location of a party. It's a place that you eat lunch. We've been together for thousands of years, and I love the casual relationship to object and like even a sacred object. And so I had my partner scan me with this 3D scanning app and kind of played around with these poses. Similarly, I'm like looking at this space in Greece where there's ruins, and then this park where there's this like LED portal, and you can kind of really see how the idea of being able to cross spaces over time, or crossing a threshold, or how those thresholds exist between a person and a god are passable. That has really like passed on through the Greek people. So that really led me to this project where I wanted to 3D scan my friends, drag performers I know, trans people I know, and really start to think about how we can represent ourselves before we've passed. I feel like a lot of what happens with monuments and memorials is that we're up for interpretation, which in many cases could be fine, but in many other cases, that interpretation is not only incorrect, but sometimes mean, or a terrible way of talking about transgender people, of people of color, anyone who is on the side of history that does not get to document it in the same way with the same power. And so I wanted to start building this library, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it. And then we started working with SFAC through Gray Area, which was this really amazing invitation because I was able to expand on this project and use a more extensive 3D scanning process to scan individual performers and then build monuments out of the shows, which will be augmented reality monuments that will be at the venue locations this November. So this is Vera, who is also my partner, who is also a drag king and runs the Rebel Kings of Oakland in Oakland at the White Horse, which is the longest running drag king show in the Bay Area and beyond. You know, I don't know of any other one. I'm joking, there's many drag king shows. But as in many other ways, you know, drag kings are also facing issues around being erased even in their own scenes, and so it's really important to me to bring attention to them. Pillows happens every Monday, rain or shine, at Powerhouse, and it's a show that's passed through different hands, and there's some really incredible icons there. And Pillows is also, like a lot of these shows, showcases singers, dancers, performers, and that this is the thing about queer art is that queer artists might be classically trained, but they start to go into their area and then they get rejected. And then, you know, it also artists of color, because they're queer, go into their communities and then they get rejected because of their queerness. And so I think these bars and these shows become these containers of like raw and incredible talent. And you can kind of see one of the scans as I'm sort of starting to build it. So here's the whole Rebel Kings of Oakland, first, third, and fifth Wednesdays at the White Horse. Oaklash, which is a festival that happens every year but is building more and more year-round programming. We have Reparations, which is every second Saturday at Oasis. Clutch the Pearls, every first Sunday at the Makeout Room, which this is classically known as your dancer's drag show. Princess, which is the first, third, and fourth Saturdays at Oasis and has been holding it down for a very long time every Saturday. Monster Show, which is weeklies on Thursdays at the Edge. And like I said, there's always a drag show every night of the week, so if you ever need anything to do, there's a drag show for you. You can kind of start to see I'm building out these monuments and like what kind of pedestal do they exist on? How do they look? How do they feel? And you can see the like amount of detail that these scans can actually capture. They can be 3D printed. They're these kind of amazing dolls or objects that can exist on a very intimate scale or on a massive scale and can be turned into actual full metal monumental sculptures at some point in which someone wants to commission that. San Francisco. This is where I'll leave you. I'm kind of working on another piece right now called Electric Apostles. The track that's going to play with this is by Dolly, who actually performs a lot at Pillows. And this is a dancer who runs a dance academy in VR, and her name is Dust Bunny. And just so you can kind of get a feel for the embodied dance practice in VR. I think it's going to play.
trying too hard? I'm not the coolest, but I'm trying. Is it worth trying for? Hide my scars away. Live another day. Just my own way. How am I doing? Am I doing great? Don't make a mistake. Build but don't create. Can you imitate? The boss just retired and the new one got fired. It needs to be replaced. Where's the party? Am I invited?
Okay, so there's a little bit about my work and my project. I think just to also just bring in a few other points too, is that, you know, I think this idea of being embodied or dysphoria that a lot of trans people experience is actually something that a lot of people experience, and really thinking about, you know, I'm in the blessed position to be the last speaker right now, but to what both of you are saying about the feeling of wanting to be disconnected or connected and the gatekeepers to connection, and I think like really opening up how we view what someone is in our own mind. Like I can look at someone, I'm like, this is my parent, but also they're a person, or this is my partner, or this is my friend, and allowing for flexibility and creativity to be how we view people around us, and then they can give it back. And I think like that's really how we can start building connection. And there's so many different ways to do that. And I've been very blessed that VR is this thing that really allows me to like unhinge my own expectations of self so that I can reattach to something new and cool and creative.
Thank you, Ambrose. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Tricia, all for sharing. It's one thing to see your slides lined up together, but it's another thing to experience it all together, and the way that they are able to flow and the continuity that exists between all of your practices. One thing in listening to this today, just that how all of your creative practices are these portals to your community and invitations to a collective experience. And I'd love if you could tell us a bit more about how your work disrupts and transcends legacies of trauma and pain, and what it means for you to heal in community. No, you went first last time.
I can go. My visceral thought was, the work is saving me. I think that when you come from an area of concentrated poverty, you can go down one of two roads, and it's like one is settling and or self-sabotaging, and the other is like building. And so I think when I speak to being a creative problem solver, I'm speaking of, you know, there's like a healing involved with it. Like I'm getting to just put my hands on what didn't go right for me, and shape it differently, reimagine it differently. And that was a long question, but that's what I got.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can also speak to, I think it's kind of wild to be in these bars and to feel like a drag show is sometimes the difference between life or death for a lot of people. And I don't know, it just made me very emotional. It's hard because these spaces close, and I think we're trying to like all find another place to stand. Yeah, so I think being able to express yourself and stand in space together and see examples of what can be, just like it unhinges some hardness. It like takes that edge off. And I think that like allows us to become close and build new things. And yeah, I feel like possibility for me is like a big healing factor. And I feel like so much of what we're told is what we cannot do or cannot be or cannot go. And being able to be the possibility for someone after someone's been the possibility for you feels like super healing.
Tough act to follow. Yeah, I think all of my work has really contributed to my own healing. I went through a lot of abuse as a kid, and I think the idea of making an archive of my own, of my body, of different points in my life, relationships ending, being an Indigiqueer person. I've been in San Francisco 20 years, and looking at my archive of photographs now, it's kind of amazing to look back and see all the different points of my life. And even if I don't have children, it exists, and it will be there. And I don't think that can be destroyed. It's like a mark. But I also wanted to say, with the last piece I showed, I had a friend who was taken a few years back, and really inspired that piece to be remade about missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. And, I was on my way to the show with a good friend, and she said, "I'm just afraid that we'll become statistics." And I think that disruption can lead to resilience, right? That disruption in a space of making people look at a thing can lead to your own resilience.
Thank you all for sharing that, and for this collective experience right now on stage of having these moments of just the emotions and feeling all the things we need to feel to be in a space of just humanness, really, who we are. One thing I also notice with all your work is there's such vitality in your projects and your practice. And to me, it's in stark contrast to these towering pedestals with topped with a cold bronze figure, static, in comparison with your practices that have such vibrancy and rawness and realness. And really the body and the embodiment are notable in all of your practices in different ways. I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit more of the ways that you ritualize memorialization in your practice and your process, and what is your process or ways that you embody, or the embodiment of monumentality.
I'll go. I think when I started my project of traveling to the South and to my homelands, I was really unaware of all it would mean. And as I got closer, I had elders I'm in community with who were like, "Well, what's your plan? Have you been praying? Are you asking what you're supposed to do? Do you have tobacco to lay down?" And I was just like, kind of floundering, and that calling in really helped ground me. You don't just go to your homelands and just take a photograph. You're introducing yourself. You're saying hello, and asking how to be in that space. And so really, it changed the work from being work to being like this process of sitting and listening. Before I took any images, it was really just sitting in the space and asking how it's doing, and how I can be of service to it, And I think in this moment we're in, this climate we're in, I could feel the tension on my homelands this time. Our holy mount had just been, someone had desecrated like the sides of it, so there were like signs up that said, "Don't trespass. We're restoring this area." And so, I think, that's the moment. Anyways.
Thank you for saying that. It sparks stuff in my brain. I was asked the question, like, where do you get your creativity from? And I'm like, we're human, like we're supposed to be creative. I think the difference is I feel more like a conduit. And so there's just something that's coming through me that needs to be born. And I don't necessarily like the way I get there is just in the dark and isolation. And I know it's sitting with whatever's on the other side that is supporting me to help it come through and be alive here in this physical plane. And yeah, so thank you for, thank you ancestors, and thank you folks in the spirit world who are coming through us and helping us to make real and this new reimagined reality.
Yeah, actually, I think about a lot that to build a building the way that like we kind of think about monuments is like this very white Eurocentric concept of a monument, and that a lot of the things that we consider to be monuments are also built on slave labor. Like we actually couldn't afford to build buildings the way that they were once built because they were built for free. And so I think it's actually super important to think about oftentimes what is our ability to see something as important, and how do we give things importance, even maybe when they're small or private. And I feel like, that's what the amazing thing about drag is, like, performing or not, being in it, you're making yourself larger than life. And a very small, even like short person, it can be very big all of a sudden. And you're sometimes faced with filling what feels like a giant stage in front of so many people, and you have no idea actually why you actually don't know how you're gonna fill that space. It feels impossible, but then you do a thing and you perform and people are screaming, and like you did this, I guess it feels like a ritual, in some ways, of like performance, and you must have been giant in that moment. Like I think it feels like you were huge. And I think like being able to sort of scan people individually and like have them hold this pose and like capture their power and talk to them, and this one-on-one thing, it to me feels bigger than one thing.
So I know we've been talking about some of your past projects, and then we're here now, things you're working on now. I want to also take us a bit to the future and some futurism here, and have you share if, who comes to mind as someone, an individual or a collective that would be a dream collaborator for you for some of the projects that you would love to realize. If it's too big, we could just leave it as an open question, but this space of thinking forward as well.
I mean, if I could just pick anyone anywhere to work with, would be Bjork. I'm like a very long time fan of Bjork. Mm-hmm. She like invents her own everything, and it's like all about interconnectedness. I feel like she even invented her own way of making sonic sentences. So it's like, she's very inspiring to me. I feel like she's already working in like VR and technological overlaps. So yeah, I mean, Bjork, if you're on YouTube and you see this video, hit me up.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a group called Post Commodity. They've done a lot of really interesting work. Do you know Post Commodity? Oh my gosh, obsessed. But they did this one project where they butchered a sheep in a Motel 6 near Navajo Nation, and you can take it a lot of ways, but the way I personally was just thinking about the commodification of indigenous cultures, and specifically Navajo people, and it's a really beautiful and haunting piece, and it stuck with me for years. But working with them would be a dream. They make larger than life work, and yeah, it really stays with you.
It took me a minute. It's so crazy because whenever I say I want something, and I'll ask, and it doesn't necessarily come at that moment, but for whatever reason, I end up working with the people I want to work with. So like Jean is shooting our like mini documentary, but I had asked them when I was pregnant, can you shoot me in my belly in my hood? And they ended up shooting us, like just recently. And so that's so cool. But who I would really love to collaborate with is just the folks that are fighting for freedom in Aotearoa. I just seen some crazy graphic, like they're like the third most peaceful place to live or something like that, but they're also just super radical. And some of the things that we did with the book was like inspired by the cultural material that they're able to produce where they're at. And so that'd be dope.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, anything with our Pacifica peoples, let's work on that. So I think, as we begin to close here, I just, would love to hear any kind of reflections you might have of this experience, how you're feeling in this moment, something you just want to leave on. Or we can leave it in dream space, too.
I'm just trying to plug my exhibit this Saturday.
Yes,
Can we run the
plugs. I love
slide? So with this opportunity, we had as the artist circle, we called ourselves the Teo Leva. And it's really, Teo Leva means to like nurture the space between us. And so we're the Teo Leva Artist Circle out of SCDC. If y'all got the slide for the exhibit. So with the contract from SFAC, we were able to commission 14 Pacifica creatives to exhibit at the Sunnydale Hub. So Sunnydale is another main public housing site, and it's in the Pacific Islander Cultural District. So this hub, some of the major stakeholders are Samoan, and they were able to pull, we just have so much deep connection in San Francisco, and so we're exhibiting there on Saturday. So it's called Hella Pacifica with 14 Frisco Pacific Islanders creatives. It'll be like their first time, so hopefully.
Yeah, thank you for that. Tricia, you have something coming up too?
I am in residence at SF Camera Work for the next few weeks, and then my show opens on October 11th.
I'm gonna be at this show when the monuments are gonna be live in November. I'm part of an exhibition with a group of trans artists at the SF LGBT Center, and that'll be up from November to January with the opening date TBD. So watch out.
Thank you so much for sharing all of those things that are happening. And thank you for being with us tonight. The programming will continue with Shaping Legacy through the end of next year. So please check our website for other programming with partner organizations. We'll have artist activations at monument sites where the monuments were removed, as well as temporary public art installations all around the city next fall. There's a sign-up sheet at the table if you'd like to stay in touch and hear what we have. If you're traveling down Market Street, don't miss our Art on Market Street poster series. That's in relation to Shaping Legacy through next year. And if you happen to walk out this evening and look towards City Hall, it's being lit up in the bronze hue in honor of the 150th anniversary of Lotta's Fountain, which is the oldest monument in the Civic Art Collection. And SF Heritage has a wonderful webinar they did on that last week on their channel. But I have to just say thank you to our amazing artists for just opening up your time, your artistry, your brilliance. And thank you for helping us reimagine monuments and really what it means to have legacy as a living practice. Thank you.